Hello, this is Pastor Laura Cavendish, and I serve at St. Paul Lutheran Church in Asheville, Ohio. And I am coming to you with day 21 of our Lenten journey, 40 days with the Lord's Prayer. And we're spreading this out. We started it way back, first part of, when did we start this? I think right before Ash Wednesday, and it'll keep extending through our season. So some of you have noticed the transition from a year ago to right now, where we're catching up on the recording for this. So I'm happy to be finishing this series. I hope it has been beneficial to you. So we are still in the week where we are focused on give us today our daily bread. And many of you know we are in the midst of issues with the Ukraine, and daily bread includes today peace. So even though I have no idea whether that's in this particular devotion. Could there be anything more important than food in making life worth living? Perhaps only one thing: food eaten together. From the family meal to the village festival, from dinner out with someone special to a lunch break in the cafeteria, from the church potluck to the wedding feast, from sitting around a campfire roasting hot dogs to inviting friends over for pizza. Eating together is one of the best things we do. And I think about newscasts I've seen and refugees flooding in and receiving the food they need, and coming together with those who are willing to help. Relationships are formed around food. We get to know each other. We discover our commonalities. We laugh and cry. We celebrate our joys and share our sorrows, all around food. In so many ways, sharing food is the, quote, tie that binds. It's the tie that binds us together. Jesus ate with anyone who would eat with him, and he was criticized for it. About himself, he said, "The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, 'Look, a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners.'" And that's from Matthew 11:19. So no one was excluded from Jesus' table except those who excluded themselves. The only ones who didn't experience the good food, good wine, and good times at Jesus' table were those who thought they were too good to eat and drink, let alone talk to, the folks who joyfully sat down to the table with Jesus. Jesus' meals with tax collectors and sinners were a powerful symbol that in Jesus, God's rule had begun. For centuries, the great day of the Lord, the coming of God's kingdom, had been symbolized by a great banquet where everyone had their fill of the finest food. One of the great prophecies of this great day of the Lord comes from the prophet Isaiah, and there is no doubt but that Jesus knew it well. So here's from Isaiah 25:6. This verse is often offered at funerals or when we're thinking of our life to come. On this mountain, the Lord of hosts will make for all peoples a feast of rich food, a feast of well-aged wines, of rich food filled with marrow, of well-aged wines strained clear. And that's from Isaiah 25:6. Jesus' open meals with tax collectors and sinners were a foretaste of this feast to come. Our daily bread, our meals together, are also a foretaste of the feast to come. Luke 15, verses 1 and 2 says this: "Now all the tax collectors and sinners were coming near to listen to him. And the Pharisees and the scribes were grumbling and saying, 'This fellow welcomes sinners and eats with them.'" If you want to go looking for that, that's in Luke 15, verses 1 and 2. And here's our theological thought. And I've always told you where that is at. So this is coming from Robert Smith and his commentary on Matthew. So, eating bread may be a physical act, but sharing bread is a spiritual act. Jesus hungers and thirsts for the new world of righteousness, and he acts ahead of time in the power of the coming world, eating with tax collectors and sinners, multiplying loaves for the hungry. And here are our questions to ponder. And if this goes by too fast, look in the notes underneath the posted video, and you'll see these questions. What do church potluck suppers have to do with Jesus' open meals? Or think of this, do you like the idea that Jesus was criticized as a glutton and a drunkard? Explain your answer. Why do you think that a banquet or feast was used as a symbol for the fulfillment of God's hope for the world? And that's something to think about. Here's a psalm fragment for us to meditate on today. So again, take your time with these things if you need to. How precious is your steadfast love, O God! All people may take refuge in the shadow of your wings. They feast on the abundance of your house, and you give them drink from the river of your delights. For with you is the fountain of life. In your light we see light. And that's from Psalm 36, verses 7 through 9. And then here's some prompts for journal reflections. Write about your experience of church picnics and potluck suppers. Do they work for you as a symbol that in Jesus, God's rule has begun? And why or why not? I have something that's going through my mind about that. We have started to set up tables in a square so we all can see each other as we eat at our once monthly potlucks that we're having with our second Sundays. And I noticed it used to be that people sat in the circle, but they still talked with who was just next to them. I've noticed that the longer that's been going on, the more people pretend that they're one big family and they start to just take turns around the circle and speaking. And I just think that's a transformation of relationship. The more we take time, the more we want to listen to what everybody says. And I've noticed that. I don't know if anybody else has noticed that. But to me, that's a symbol that God's rule is working among us as people of God. Okay, here's another thing for a journal prompt. If you have ever served or you've eaten at a homeless shelter, write about the experience. And what feelings did it evoke? And if you haven't, why not give it a try? So there's that one. Whom we will eat with and whom we won't eat with can tell us a lot about ourselves. Make a list of specific people you will and won't eat with. And then any conclusions. So that's kind of an interesting exercise. I think that would be great exercise for kids that are in school. Because, I think that's just a good thing. And to think about, I used to go to a community meal at my husband's former congregation, and they had circular tables, and people liked to eat with the same people week after week. They would sit at the same place, and they did a challenge one time of really choosing a different table every week and trying to always seek out someone you didn't know. And I remember taking that challenge, and as a pastor who knew that I had to sit and visit with different people and had done it many times. When it came time to my supper time, I was like, this is too much stress. And yet when you started to do it, the room grew. I mean, you knew everybody, and but I remember that, and it's a really a growth thing to see how many different people you can eat with. So enough on that. I'm going to say a prayer that they have here, and then we're going to say the Lord's Prayer together before we wrap up. God of such abundance, thank you for common meals in which that abundance is shared. Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. All right, go in peace. May Christ go with you this day. I tonight am going to our March Madness party and have my Ohio State t-shirt on, and we're going to share food, and it really helps grow relationships to share food and do things like that together. So I encourage you to try out. Let's eat with new people and take advantage of meals with others. So, which was hard with the pandemic. It was hard to give that up. So I encourage you to do that despite your fears, maybe that things aren't quite over with, but to share food with some new people, maybe even a small group. So again, go in peace. May Christ go with you.